Okay, so just some quick introductions. Hi, everybody. If you haven't seen me before, I'm Devin Waugh, the instruction librarian for NC Live, and I have two fantastic co-hosts today. So Mimi Curley and Jana Bradley. Mimi, if you want to introduce yourself quickly, and then Jana.
I'm a librarian with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library System in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hi,
Jana.
everyone. I'm Jana, and I'm the Senior Library Assistant here at the Small Business Center at Durham County Library.
All right, so just a quick agenda for today as well. Mimi and Jana will dive into how they use DataAxle. They'll share some examples of patron questions that have come up and searches that they've done. We'll go into a little bit of a scenario using DataAxle, and then we'll talk through kind of communicating the value from different points to patrons, to library staff, to partners. And then we'll also make sure there's time to cover some resources and Q&A at the end. And with that, I do want to share the links to these slides in the handout. So you're welcome to follow along if you'd like. You can use them as a reference at any point. And then we've also linked to resources from national and local organizations. So one thing that I do want to share kind of at the top is in the registration form, you all shared a lot of reasons for what you want to get out of this training, which was great. And so I kind of wanted to compile some of the top ones that came up. So tips and tricks, you'll see plenty of that. We will cover how to explain this resource to patrons because it has a very clunky title, but it has a great use. And then talking to business students and faculty, how they can integrate this into projects and instruction. We'll go through troubleshooting tricky searches. I'll also make sure to mention where DataAxle gets its information from. We will cover the consumer profiles throughout the session today. And then I'll also share some examples of finding use cases for daily responsibilities in libraries. So this can be a really great tool for learning about your patrons and potentially for marketing, but we will get to that at the end. My first question for you all, if you could share in the chat, is what services or programs does your library currently provide local businesses and entrepreneurs? So feel free to share some examples in the chat. All right, so space to meet. Partnership with Small Business Center, one-on-one DataAxle sessions, that's great. One-on-one research. NC Seed for informational programs, small business series with Small Business Development Center. Our college has a small business center providing most of those needs. Spaces, small biz programs, information literacy classes for entrepreneurial business students. Awesome. And now we will switch gears and Mimi and Jana will take over and share how they use DataAxle. One thing that you can use this tool for is niche businesses. So Mimi will kind of share this example from her own context.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I worked in the main library at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library System for 30 years, and now I'm at one of the smaller branches. And we had, during the pandemic, just like everybody else, we went to virtual programs. One of the ones that has stuck around is our business our Book a Librarian business research sessions. Those are one-on-one virtual programs that I do with people who reserve it in our computer system. And a lot of times, somebody will have a business and they're trying to find clients, or they're trying to, get the word out about their business. And Data Axle is the premier database that I use for this. So I will explain to them what Data Axle is, and go into, usually it's US businesses. And I'll tell them that, they can look for a particular business under the quick search and then go to the advanced search. And in this example, this person has a concrete pumping business. And, I learned a long time ago, I'm a librarian, but I in no way know everything. And so I had to ask a lot of questions. And this is a company that has equipment that, okay, you've got the big concrete truck that goes around and around and mixes the concrete. And then you've got a ditch over here, and you need to get the concrete from the truck to the ditch. Well, this person has the equipment, a pump, that pumps the concrete from the truck into the ditch. I had no idea that that was a thing. I guess I just assumed that there was no intermediary, but you learn a lot this way. So this person was looking, they're trying to grow their business, they need clients. So the first thing I did was I went under business type, and we talked about the clients that this person was looking for. And so one of the things that I looked at, of course, we looked at her competitors, but when you put in Data Axle, you can look for different types of businesses. And in this case, I put in concrete. Well, if I could spell correctly today, concrete. And so we've got a lot of options here. And this would be great to know not only your competition, but who you might partner with. Maybe you come across a huge job and you know that you don't have enough capacity to do the entire job. Well, if you know who your competitors are, you may be able to talk with them, and then you band together as a group and you go after this big job, and you all benefit instead of just having to skip it. Another way to look for clients, a lot of times general contractors are the people who find all of the different vendors for a particular job. So making sure that they know your name and your capabilities is huge. So looking at general contractors, if I just look at that for the entire United States, Data Axle has, whoops, I have to click on it. Data Axle has 64,000 general contractors, but this company is in Charlotte, in Mecklenburg County. So under geography, I'm going to select North Carolina and Mecklenburg. And so that gives me a list of 262 general contractors in Mecklenburg County that my client might want to contact, or at least send them something that tells them that they are available and have the equipment that can be used on any of their jobs. And we'll talk about how to get that information out of Data Axle and use it to a better extent in a few minutes. Do we want to ask for questions after each example or till the end?
We can check in about questions. Folks, do you have any questions about that example? All right, we will switch gears. So with the next example that Jana will share, it involves extremely small businesses, and in particular, pet grooming business. So I'll have her take it away.
Okay, let me share my screen here. So some of the questions we get are from people who are just starting out or just barely have an idea. I had somebody come in and they said, I enjoy working with pets. I have this background. I think I'm going to look into pet grooming, but I'm not sure where to put it. I'm not sure how to work that. And I was like, I have this database. Let me show you. So in this case, we can look at two things. One is at the businesses, like Mimi. We'll use the advanced search, and hopefully my computer will. There we go. And I happen to know the NAICS code for this. NAICS codes tend to be a little bit better for service-based industries. It's kind of the update of the SIC codes. So I looked that up, and that is for pet spas and pet grooming. And you can get marvelously specific in here. I didn't realize that animal communicators was a segment. I was pretty excited to read about that. 2.1 is pet washing and grooming. And I'm going to look in Durham County. View results, and we can see that there are currently about 19 businesses. When you get this information, take it with a grain of salt. It should be mostly correct. Don't bet everything on it, but it's pretty solid information. And you can also see who owns it, the street address, zip code, and I'll show you some more mapping later. But it's a good start to know that there's a good number, but not too many. The other thing you can do is look at consumers. So you could say to yourself, okay, where is a good place to put these people? Do you know what your typical clientele would look like? We'll look for Durham County again. And we can look at things like lifestyles. So in here, there's a category for pets. They've got dogs. And let's say we want a specific income, people who are likely to be able to afford pet grooming on a reliable basis. I'm going to pick over 80,000 here. And let's see. So you've got about 2,000. Got about 2,000 people from there. You take income off. And we've got 4,000, roughly 4,500 people in Durham who have a pet dog. And we can look on this through the heat map. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but you can see where most of the groomers are located. Maybe you want to open up a little bit further out there. You can drill down a little bit more and see where are people most heavily located that would have a dog or would have the income possible for this. Both of those are great ways to start as you're thinking about what you want to open, where you want to open it, where are your clients, where are other businesses, where will I probably see some success. So I always direct people that way when we're starting to think about things. And I will stop there and see if anybody has questions.
We have a question from Eulea asking, did you just do a search for the NAICS code, or is there a resource that lists them all?
Yes, so I just searched for it, but you can put, you can do a search for that. Come back here. And I'm actually going to go back the whole way. So under advanced search, you can do a keyword search for NAICS. So let's see. It was pet grooming. So you can, as you look up, you can see there's pet grooming and washing. But you can also essentially Google it or go to, I think it's NAICS.com. We'll have all the codes there.
Oh, Jennifer is asking, I have a question from my small business center wanting a list of businesses to contact per census tract. I don't see a way to search for census tract in Data Axle, but I wanted to ask.
I don't think there is a good way for census tract. If you can equate to, can definitely do zip codes.
I'm going to bop in. The closest I've been able to do with that is the map search.
Mhm.
So you can pull up a map of the census tract from the Census Bureau's website or wherever, and then go under geography and Data Axle and map-based search. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then you can kind of draw the census tract, or if it's a group of census tracts, like going down a highway or in a economic corridor or around a in a particular area, then you're basically using your cursor to draw that area. And it's awkward, but it can be done. But Data Axle does not provide census tract search.
All right, so at this point, we're going to switch and talk about mailing labels, which Mimi will take it away on that front. Oh, Mimi, I think you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Lost my tab. All right.
No worries.
Screen share. Okay. So let's go back and pretend that I was looking for general contractors in Mecklenburg County. And I have this question a lot. You know, I'll perform the search, I'll show somebody how to do it, and then they just kind of look at me like, so? Well, you can download this list of companies into a database, into a spreadsheet. So at the bottom of the screen, Data Axle tells you that they allow you to download up to 250 records at a time. So beside company name, you can click that little square box, and that selects the 25 on the first page. And then you can go to the next page, and click the box and keep going until you get your entire list or the 250. And I'm going to pretend that I did that. And then up here on the blue buttons, I'm going to select download. And then I usually select Excel for my format. And the level of detail I want is everything because I'm greedy. And then I'm going to click download records. And then magically, I have a list in a spreadsheet format that is now mine, that I can download and keep on my computer and do whatever the heck I want to with it. And instead of the data going down, it's going across for each of the companies. So you've got all of that information, how many employees, sales figures, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all that good fun stuff. Now, a lot of people are bummed out because Data Axle does not have email addresses. And I take a deep breath and I say, I think if they did have email addresses, they would probably be something like info@companyname.com, and who the heck knows if anybody's looking at that. So Data Axle does give you the website. They give you Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that fun stuff. You can cyber stalk them to your heart's content. And you can also go old school. You can send them some kind of information by creating mailing labels. If you have Microsoft Word, somewhere in Microsoft Word, there is okay. There is a label over my,
Would it be under
got it.
mailings?
I finally clicked the OK and got that.
it.
Right. So at the top or somewhere in your version of Word, it has mailings. And you can tell it you want to make labels. And amazingly enough, you can go to Amazon, Walmart, Staples, whoever, and get a box of those mailing labels that have X number on a page. And you can go to options in Word and you can tell it what brand you bought, like Avery. A lot of people use Avery. And then you can tell it there'll be a number on the box, and you select the number, and Word knows how many are on a page, how big the labels are, how far apart to put them. It gives you a template. And then you go over to your spreadsheet and you say, okay, I want on the label, I want the executive first name, executive last name, space. Next line, I want the address. No, I want the company name. And then I want the address on the next line. And then the next line, I want city, state, and zip code. So you put that in. And then the system wants to know, okay, how does it find all the different things that it wants on every single label? And you tell it the spreadsheet that you saved from Data Axle. And then you put your mailing labels in your printer, you push go, and you've got mailing labels. Now, before I did this, I would definitely go through the database, the spreadsheet, and if there are any companies that I already know that I don't want to send it to, or occasionally you'll have the same company, but they're just at different addresses. You might want to take one of those addresses out. And sometimes there might be a little outlier because nothing is perfect. And so then my suggestion is always that you either talk to the post office or do a thorough examination of the United States Post Office Services website, or you talk to a printer about exactly how you need to do the mailing, because they're very picky about the size of what you mail, how it's folded, it has to have little sticky things on it, and where you put the label and all that good stuff. But it may seem a little old school, but sometimes people will look at something they get in the mail nowadays because it's not as often that you get something, but that delete button is very, very, very handy. So this is another option for you in your when you're trying to market your product or service.
We have a question from Elia asking, if a patron wanted to open a bakery, would you search the SIC or NAICS code for just bakeries, or would you include codes for businesses like Publix or Harris Teeter, since they too have bakeries and could possibly be competition? I know this is something that Mimi got recently with a patron, so any advice?
I just put in the keyword bakery and I got all of the above. I got the little ones, the big ones, everybody. And my personal opinion is whether it's a little teeny bakery that has a specialty in European artisan bread, or if it's Publix or Walmart or whatever, they're all competition. Because if somebody wants bread, they're going to buy it where they want to buy it. You're going to have to keep that in mind, and you're going to have to deal with it, whether you're making, thinking about price points, or if you're thinking about, special marketing, or if you're thinking about the actual product that you're putting together. It's all your competition.
Yeah, I'll add to that when you're looking at NAICS codes, they follow a pattern. So you'll be able to see like 81291, I think, is all pet related. And then you can see it'll be like a pet spa, pet grooming, pet boarding, pet other pet services. So you'll be able to look through the list and say, you know what, it's kind of, this is close enough that I want to consider that item. And because they'll all be a related industry within that category. So as you're looking through them, just take the time maybe to scroll a little bit and say, oh, do any of these sound close? Or, do you think that you might overlap in some way with these? And you can throw them in, because at least you know who else is out there and what they're doing, either to eventually expand your services or your offerings, or to say like, oh, okay, maybe I work with them, I refer them clients, like I can't do this thing, oh, but I know this business who can. You can work out a partnership that way. So more information is always better, I think.
All right, do we want to cover heat maps or jump into the radius search?
I can talk about heat maps because they're pretty
Okay.
and I like them.
Perfect.
And I think they're really cool. So I told you a little bit about heat maps. They are great for figuring out where people are, where businesses are, where they are concentrated. And let's see, so we'll go back to pet grooming here. We are in Durham, where we will be. Okay. So we've got our 19 results. We click on heat map, and sometimes it does not heat map right away. I don't know why. It's very strange. So we can see, looking at Durham, we get an idea of where are these businesses? What are they doing? And the actually extra nice thing is that they tally them by zip code. So if you have somebody who is looking at a building in 27705, you can say, you know what, there's 7 of them there. Maybe find somewhere else that's less used, 27712, maybe 27713. There's nothing there. You can kind of cross-reference with income. And we get a little bit closer, we can see where all of these businesses actually are. We can also look at it by sales volume. So we know where the businesses are, but are they making a lot of money? Maybe there's a large concentration, but only one of them is actually doing really, really well. So we can see here that it looks like this business and this business are making the most income. So maybe you want to locate somewhere close, but not too close to there. It looks like it might be a good market for them. You can also search by number of employees. That gives you an indicator how busy it might be. Looks like this location over here towards Chapel Hill is very busy. So that's smart. So you can get an idea what business is it, how many people. So maybe you want to throw out your PetSmarts. Maybe you want to include them. You can see how big they are, what kind of revenue they're making. That gives you a little bit more information. You can also do it. Let's see, doing this maybe the most inefficient way possible here. And also, I found that people really like the maps, especially to add to their business plans. It adds a little bit, and they get very excited about being able to have a nice chart and graph readily available.
One thing that you've done is also added the lifestyles for like travel in addition to that.
Yeah, so you can you can really get very specific with lifestyles. So you can find out. Computer is so slow today. If you think somebody, they have a dog, they enjoy traveling. Let's see, we've got pets, so they've got a dog. They enjoy, let's see, general travel, and maybe I don't know, they enjoy books and magazines of some kind. So you can get really remarkably specific with it, and particularly if you're looking in a specific zip code. Let me pick Durham again. And you can really drill down to who are my best customer when you're thinking, what is, as the entrepreneur is thinking, who is my ideal customer? What are their characteristics? You can really feed them into this and figure out exactly where are they, what do they like, what is their income. You can get a really good idea of where they are, which is pretty amazing. It's a little, apparently this is not going to let me search today. So you can do that. You can get remarkably specific, pull up all kinds of information for them. You can map it out. Also very handy in figuring out not only where are my businesses, where people I would be competing against, people I can work with, but also where are my consumers? Are they concentrated in one neighborhood over another, especially when they're picking a location? It's very, very handy.
We were asked for tips and tricks, and since Jana's machine is just not cooperating exactly, one thing that I'll throw in is if you select lifestyles, don't select, let's see, the below that is like income or any of those other demographics, because then you get this weird metrics table that's just very annoying. And but if you stick to lifestyle, then that will give you name and address and phone number, and a lot of times that's what our customers are looking for. Then you can do the map off of that. But if you try to do the lifestyle and the demographics, and I understand it, I get it, it's a privacy issue. If you have, if Data Axle allows you to drill down too narrowly to, single women with dogs and an income of this, and then there's going to be trouble. So I understand the theory behind it, but it makes it a little annoying when you're trying to zero in too much for your customer.
So I finally got my map to pop up. Let's see if it will actually pop up. Nope. Oh, here we are. So you can see in Durham, these are the locations that have the most people with what was it, like dogs, travel, and books. So maybe you're having a dog cafe that includes grooming. Here's my next $1 million idea. You want to locate it in these areas because that's where those people are located. So, any questions?
This is a great example too, because looking at the businesses, there weren't as many around South Durham. Like some of them are PetSmart and bigger ones, but like the handful of businesses were closer to downtown. So this is a good opportunity to look at, okay, well, the market might be in South Durham because there are so many potential clients that you could find there.
Yeah, and actually that's exactly where I would tell somebody to go, is that's where a lot of the new construction is, a lot of the income is in that area. We can see that there's not a lot down there based on the criteria, but there are a lot of people who are very interested in those items. So that would be a better spot for you than, say, downtown.
Nice. All right. So we have an example of using the radius search for a grand opening of a business. This is something that Mimi put together. So I'll have her share it.
Oops, sorry. Back at Data Axle, instead of concrete and general contractors, I'm going to look for the wine bars. And in this case, I'm looking at within Mecklenburg County is Matthews, North Carolina. And so if you were looking at creating a wine bar, whoop, something didn't work there. Oh, it lost the wine bars. Okay, let me put that back in. Okay. And I've got Matthews. So I have 24. So let's say that your company, your wine bar was John's Place, or it could be near John's Place. You could go in here and you could put in an address. If your company is not in here yet, you could put in a company that's next door or whatever, just so that you get the address that you're talking about. And then right under here, you can do a radius search. And you can say, I want to find all the companies that are within a 1/4 mile of that address. So this is giving you a list of companies, and they're 98. And so you could send out a mailing to these companies, inviting their employees to your grand opening. And I happen to know that when you look at those 98 companies, that represents 300 employees, because I looked at this earlier. And that's a lot of people to come to a grand opening. Maybe you have it over a weekend. Maybe you have a coupon that has, you get 20% off on your product or service if they come during the grand opening. So this would get the word out to people that were close enough either to walk or to go by on their way to work or on their way home.
Awesome. Thanks, Mimi. We will switch gears and troubleshoot a complex search now. So let me share my screen and we'll get into it. So here is our scenario. We have a patron who is starting off their wedding planning business, and they're coming to the library to find out kind of who their competition is, how to find clients, and maybe some statistics on weddings that they can include in their small business plan. One thing as I talked to Mimi and Jana about this is a patron rarely, very, very rarely comes to the library with a knowledge of what resources we have. And so they're often thinking in these broader terms of competition and clients. So it's really kind of our job to explain Data Axle, but also not scare them off with it, the jargon and the name of Data Axle. And really share kind of how this tool can be used as part of their search. So in terms of searching for wedding planning businesses in Data Axle, the SIC code is specific, whereas the NAICS code falls under all other personal services, which can be very broad. I'll show you how to look for that. But one of the great things about an example like this of an extremely small business, potentially someone's side hustle, is you can use some of the resources in Data Axle to look up your competition and find out like what is their sales volume realistically, because patrons might have an idea in mind that their business will make them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if you actually look at the data in Data Axle, you can get kind of a more realistic picture of what they might stand to make with their business, how many employees they should expect, things like that. Another thing with this particular industry is then going to the wedding planning businesses websites and potentially looking at if they have public pricing or quote estimates. That can kind of help this person determine whether they'd like to offer full service planning, day of planning, partial planning as part of their business model. But we'll get into Data Axle now. Let me show you. And the list of examples that I have here from Charlotte, some of them I got from Data Axle, and then I also supplemented the list with searching on relevant trade websites like Wedding Wire to find some other examples. So if I go into US businesses in advanced search, there we go. And I do like to just kind of use the keyword search to start things off. So wedding planning. Let's see here. There we go. Wedding consultants, planning and arranging. And then I'm going to go into my metro area. You can go by county, but with something like a wedding planning business, they're often covering a larger geography than just a county. They might be looking at Charlotte area as well as Piedmont, depending on their business. So I have 29 results for this. And what I can do is look up the profile of a particular business. So I'm going to click on Dream Weddings on a budget. And I'm going to scroll through and see this company has been in Data Axle for 18 years. And then I can scroll through and see kind of a rough estimate of their sales volume, as well as their employee size. And if I scroll down, I can take a look at the competitors report. So this shows me different examples of the competition. So if I want to take a look at, let's see here, a perfect day, I'm able to see another business in this metro area, as well as sales volume. So really good year in 2016, and then kind of sharing that estimate of sales volume as well as employee size. So this, a perfect day has 4 employees, which is a lot for a wedding planning business. Often it's like typically 1 or 2. And then again, I can look at competitors report and scroll through. One thing with this example is because it's broad, it also often includes venues as well. And there's not really a perfect NAICS code, industry SIC code for wedding venues. So you kind of have to look up things like banquet halls, hotels, as well as this code for wedding supplies, services, and caterers, because often venues have in-house catering. So again, this is a nice way to kind of look at your competition and do what Mimi did earlier, where I could, there we go. I could download a spreadsheet of this and have all of the data right at my fingertips for all these data points of like sales volume, executive name, all that sort of stuff. I can also take a look if I go to summary. I can show account breakdown by sales volume, where let's say I want to see which of these has a sales volume of 1 to 2.5 million. And I can look at, these are kind of tangentially related businesses: catering, florists, bridal shops. So they may not necessarily be competition, but they are a potential business to business contact, somebody that you can use, because a lot of this industry operates on building up a vendor list, finding clients, and people who can kind of market your business with you, bridal shops, florists, etc. And Jana's sharing, hot tip: when you're searching, you can use update count to see how many records come up and alter your criteria. Yes, that's a great tool, because it does give you an idea of, okay, if I'm doing a search and only 8 businesses like this come up in the county, maybe I can broaden my geographic area and include 3 counties or a metro area for that search, or maybe add in multiple industry codes for tangentially related businesses. With this example, I'm going to go back and show you a few other things. So the charts, these are great, but the charts can only be made if you have more than 50 businesses. And so I'm going to revise my search. And let's say I add in wedding chapels as an example. Let's see if I can, all right, 48 wedding ballrooms. I want to look at, I'm not going to do that. Now I have 51 businesses at least, and I can look at the charts here. These charts are great because they do allow you, like if you want to kind of look at an industry in a specific geographic area, like you want to see the number of breweries that are in Wilmington, or you want to see the number of commercial painting businesses that are in Asheville and get an idea of their sales volume. This allows you to take that bird's eye view and see, okay, the majority of the businesses have a sales volume that's less than $500,000. And then there's 4 businesses that are $500,000 to $1 million, and then $1 million to $2.5 million. And you can download these as image file to include in a small business plan. And so these resources really can help demonstrate the particular demand for a business and really have that small business owner feeling prepared to use this data when they're trying to come up with a loan for their business to start things off, or they're looking at working with a local business nonprofit, getting feedback on their small business plan. You do have citation information for these charts if you need it. But yeah, it allows you to see kind of employee size, zip code, city, and sales volume, which is really nice. I'm going to jump back into this example and show you a couple of other things to think about. So we talked about searching for competitors, why looking up those profiles is helpful, and then kind of exporting them as needed. But also with that building contacts, coming up with a list of caterers, florists, event rentals. So many weddings involve rentals of tables and glassware, and if people want a photo booth or they want a tent in addition to the wedding venue, like these things involve so many different vendors to juggle, and it's useful for somebody to pull up this list in Data Axle and then have a spreadsheet that they can use to kind of go off on their way and start building those contacts. So these are just some examples. Looking up, let's say if we wanted to look up the caterers in Charlotte. I'm going to revise my search, and I'm going to look at catering. And I'm going to keep my metro area. I have 847 caterers in Charlotte. So that's an example of like 800 is a lot. And I've maybe need to zoom in on a particular area. So let's look at that map-based search in Charlotte. And say, okay, maybe I'm not going with the entire metro area, but I can prioritize looking at caterers who kind of around downtown Charlotte. And I have to double click my shape. Now I have 79 instead of 800. I click done, and then I can view my results and potentially take a look at these options, maybe getting rid of Chick-fil-A and Ben & Jerry's, but looking more maybe at Anderson's Catering as a potential list, or Creative Catering. And again, I can do the same for if I want to look up. Sometimes you can see based on, yeah, there we go. If I want to look at just my wedding cake producers in the Charlotte area, I have 38 in this map. Nothing Bundt Cakes, Amelie's French Bakery. And then I can even look at, we have Villani's Bakery, Wow Factor Cakes, and kind of go from there and looking at potential contacts and vendors to work with. Now, another thing that I can do is kind of use that consumer profile section to start kind of sizing out a target market. So Again, you can view your results. You can make those lovely charts if you have 50 or more of a business and looking at sales volume. And then looking at clients. So often with these wedding planning businesses, they start off by suggesting like test clients. So planning weddings of, a friend or a colleague, somebody you know, and then kind of working from there and building that local client list. But you can look at Data Axle and maybe say, I want to prioritize looking at a particular neighborhood, maybe looking at a particular lifestyle or purchase behavior as well to add in. So let me exit full screen. And say, let's look at the map-based search. The reason I say map-based search is you could get so many different people doing metro area or county, but maybe you just want to prioritize finding clients in a particular neighborhood. So this is what we can do is look at, maybe I want to look at young professionals that live downtown and see here. Kind of playing around with this a little bit. I have 41,000 people. So what I'm going to do is look at narrowing this down, one per household. Maybe I want to find my people who are really into gourmet food and wine, and say, I'm developing a wedding planning business that prioritizes the food experience of weddings. I'm working with caterers and restaurants that are high priced, and I want to build up a client list based on that experience that I'm able to plan for this business. And so it does kind of allow people to flesh out, like, who could you potentially send your mailer for about your wedding planning business? Now, like Mimi said and Jana said, adding in some of the other searches, so you have this information. And what we're going to do is go back, and if I add in these things just to show you what we're talking about here, I want to look at this. The problem is what it does is it says, yes, there are 581 people within this neighborhood that fit that description. It gives you this matrix that we understand why they're doing this, but it's not exactly the most user-friendly tool. It does allow you to see, okay, here's the handful maybe of people who I might want to market to in this neighborhood that fit that income range. I'm going to go revise my search. Again, like let's say you have your wedding, your client that potentially you're looking for clients because you're developed a relationship with a venue that's like outdoorsy and fun and very summer camp like experience. I've been in a wedding that was billed as a summer camp theme, believe it or not. And so I'm going to uncheck income and click view results. And I could potentially look within that targeted shape at those being potential clients for my wedding planning business. So that's how you can kind of take the search and use Data Axle to like find things that you need, but also you can use other NC Live services. for this patron in this search. So one thing I found was looking up wedding industry in the ABI Inform collection. So that's one of our ProQuest resources. I found a lot of great trade and industry publications about the state of weddings in 2024. What are the trends? What are the purchasing behavior, kind of budgeting behaviors, costs of weddings? And it took me to some of these examples, like the Knot, which is one of these industry directories, their real wedding study. And so that was also a great tool. Is Data Axle is not necessarily your like end all be all, but it is a puzzle piece in your search. And the ABI Inform collection has this collection of first industry research reports from Dun & Bradstreet that are fantastic. You can get a quarterly report on the state of the catering industry or the state of the pet grooming industry as recent as like a month ago. And you get a full SWOT analysis of that industry. What are the risks? What are certain segments of the market that you can look at? And so I know this is a session on Advanced Data Axle, but one of those kind of next steps that you can take is looking at the ABI Inform collection and pointing patrons to some of the great tools in there. I think the research reports, the quarterly ones, I want to share with every like small business owner I know because they're so great. Now, we are going to switch gears and look at communicating the value. Any questions about that scenario? All right. So in terms of communicating the value, I'll also have Mimi and Janet jump in. But one of the things that we talked about as a group is in talking to patrons about this, one of the things that they rely on in communicating the value is explaining that thousands of dollars are spent on these resources. So NC Live negotiates on behalf of all of our member libraries to give access to Data Axle, the ABI Inform collection, Social Explorer. But big businesses use Data Axle as well. And in a way, by providing access to this resource, libraries are really leveling the playing field for local businesses and allowing your small business owner that doesn't, have, venture capital or things like that to benefit from the information that's in there. Another thing that we talked about was more data is always better. People who are starting small businesses, people in general, can make bad decisions when they don't have the information. One thing that Mimi and Jana mentioned when we were talking about this was signing a lease being one. So would you two want to kind of share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I've talked with people with a lot of organizations that help small businesses. And unfortunately, sometimes people will come to them after they've signed a lease. And then it turns out that the property that they're have decided that they're going to start their business in is not the best place to do it. And if they can, before they sign the lease, if they can look at this data, if they can look at, where their competition is, where the people who spend money on their product or service, and then look at these maps. And I love computers. I love all this data and all. But to me, the most important tool you have that anyone has is their common sense. And so my suggestion is always to go there and look around, see what the traffic patterns are, see what other businesses around them. Something that a lot of people don't think about is a lot of times you need to check with the municipal zoning and the municipal planning department, because I don't know about where you live, but I'm in Charlotte, and every time you turn around, they're tearing up a street. And if they're planning on tearing up a street, it's not going to be fixed tomorrow. So, knowing ahead of time that they're getting ready to do something, a big project or whatever on the street that you're planning to have your business in, that might not be so bad if you were 5 years, 10 years into your business. But if you're just starting out and nobody can get in, you're sunk.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, especially with signing a lease, often there's personal guarantees. So even if you have a 5-year lease and you can't make it out of year 2, you're still responsible for the remainder of that leasehold. And that's the kind of mistake that will, not only ruin your business, but also has the potential to ruin you personally. So it's so important for people to really understand all of the things, but also use all of the data to make the best decision they can. And it's, I think, much easier, especially if you show them a map with lots of colors and people kind of intuitively understand a heat map. They're like, oh, okay, I see that, these are the hot spots, and maybe that isn't the best choice for me. But at least it gives them some additional information. It gives it some more tools to use so that they can make those decisions. They can make a good decision, and they know that it's reliable information, that it's solid, and they can count on that.
Yeah, thank you both. One thing that we also discussed was like, it is very overwhelming being a small business owner, and it's difficult to determine what's reliable. This data we'll cover in a sec is pulled from Chamber of Commerce information. It's pulled from census records, SEC filings, and really puts all this information at your fingertips. It's a resource like we wouldn't have it if we didn't know that it was valuable and reliable and useful for libraries. And it really helps you focus on your particular geographic area and help people make informed decision making. While we used examples from Durham and Charlotte, I've also met with libraries they're based in rural areas like near Boone, and they're able to use this tool just as well to find like women-owned businesses in their area or minority-owned businesses, and potentially find partners for library programming or help small business owners kind of be put in touch with a larger community in their area. For library staff, so don't be afraid of this resource. You can use it for marketing and developing impactful programming as well. So it does help you figure out what your service population is interested in. You could use the map-based search or the radius and say, like, my service population right around my branch of the library, are they really interested in knitting? Oh, we have a knitting program that we want to start up. It allows you to also find potential program partners. So your yarn stores that you could help have as partners for your knitting program, or nonprofits that you could partner with. And it also allows you to see and answer questions like, who lives within a 2-mile radius of my branch? What are their age ranges? Like do I have a high retiree population that's right around the radius of my branch? And what are they interested in? It's also really good for finding people who are new to your area. Libraries will sometimes do like a mailer to new homeowners, and potentially even I've heard of libraries doing open house programs where they will invite their Chamber of Commerce and they'll invite the superintendent of schools and do kind of like a tables set up that allows new homeowners, people who are new to the area, to meet these different community partners and organizations and have that one-on-one time. So just an example of some of the questions that came up in registration about how to find use cases for it. I really think it helps to kind of explore a little bit and see, but I do think the consumers and lifestyle section, while it's for small business owners potentially that are coming to the library, it's also for you as well. And potentially the data that you might need to figure out, is this a program that people might be interested in? Any other thoughts on this, Mimi and Jana?
I can give you an actual scenario from this. So one of the programs that we have here is called Eats and Treats. We run it in conjunction with our Library Fest, or our Library Week festival programming. And we look at restaurants. We wanted to target restaurants and cafes that were close to the branches. So we went in and, looked at restaurants within a half mile of each branch, came up with a mailing list, sent them a postcard and said, hey, do you guys want to be involved in this? We'd love to have you. And that was actually pretty effective. Gave us some good contacts from there. And we were also able to figure out program partners for some of these programs that we're having. So we knew that we were looking for kind of animal and nature-based things. So we looked through the codes and said, okay, these are pretty likely candidates, and found some new good ideas from it. So there's a lot of data in there. There's so much information. People don't really realize that we have it. When I've had conversations with business owners, and I always mention it, and they are absolutely blown away that we have this and that it's free, because this is very, very expensive information online. And they just can't believe their luck when I say, oh, I can pull that for you. It'll take me 2 minutes. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I've been looking all over for this. It was so expensive. It's impossible to find. I'm like, it's right here. We've got this. No problem. So mention it to people, because they will happily tell you exactly what they need, and kind of extrapolate from there. So it's a good question to ask your businesses that come in, and just to let them know, hey, we have this thing, and it can make your life a lot easier. It's reliable, it's great. Lately we've seen a lot of people who have been watching Instagram reels, and they have some very interesting ideas about business that are completely incorrect. So this is a nice tool to be able to say, actually, let's think about that a little bit. Let's gather some information, and hopefully we're helping them to not make a huge mistake with their businesses.
Now, I have to say, I have been training myself not to tell people that this is free. Their library card is free, except for the fact that they've already paid for it with their taxes. And, when the library takes that tax money and combines it with what the state legislature is providing for NC Live, then we're like a big conglomerate, and we're able to pay for these resources. And my theory, which don't have any basis behind it, but the old saying about, you get what you pay for. I think there are also people that think, well, if you don't pay for it, it's not worth anything. But if we emphasize the fact that these databases are hugely expensive, and the only way that you and me and Bob down the street have access to them is through the library systems, then that conveys how important our libraries are to our communities, not just with story time and, that next great mystery novel, but with this valuable economic development, these tools. I also wanted to say that if you are in a library and not all of your staff has been able to attend this, even just asking every single staff member to go into Reference USA and find the restaurants within a quarter of a mile, because everybody's interested in lunch. So, you might find some places that you haven't gone to yet. And that kind of that motivation might have them going in there and actually using the tool. And then when they have a patron come in, then they're like, oh, I can show you how to use this. So, you know, it's amazingly useful for many, many, many different reasons.
So this is just a recap of a question that came in through registration. How does Data Axle get their information? So Yellow Page, Business White Page, directories, SEC information, government data, Chamber of Commerce info, business magazines, trade publications, newspapers, any sort of industry or specialty directories, and then things like census records, postal service information, change of address updates as well.
I also wanted to mention that I've also had a lot of people that wanted to know how they could get their business into the directory.
Yeah.
And there is a contact us button on the database. So they can contact Data Axle, fill out the little form, and then Data Axle will get back in touch with them. So that could be another marketing angle for their business.
Mhm. Kathy's asking, is information for small privately owned businesses, such as executive name and number of employees, only available if they self-report? I'm not sure totally. But
We've been told by the reps, by Data Axle reps, that they get this information, they get, you know, all of the places that you see on the screen, they pull it together into the Data Axle database. Now, not all of these different disparate reports that they get have the same information. And so what we're told is that it gets into the database, and then Data Axle has employees who call these companies to verify the information. I've never been exactly sure about every single, what exactly they verify. And so if a client, if I'm talking to a patron and they either see their company in there and there's something that's not right or whatever, I encourage them to, you know, contact Data Axle and get it fixed. If there's no executive name or number of employees or whatever, then they do give you the website, the Twitter, Facebook, all that fun stuff, and you can cyberstalk them and find out more information. I look at Data Axle as a starting point. As we've said throughout this program, well, as I've said, nothing is perfect. And you may get a list of 15 companies and you're like, wait a minute, I know there are more than that. This is ridiculous. Well, it's a starting place. And once you've got that spreadsheet, you can go out to Google, you can go out to Trade Publicate, whatever, and start filling in the blanks. It all depends on how important that information is to you. And your local librarian can help you find other tools to find and fill in the gaps where you find them on Data Axle.
Yeah, I think a lot of the information is from their annual report registration. So that will have usually a member manager type contact at least. Even if you end up with a company or a small business that is listed as an LLC, you can go to the Secretary of State's website in their corporations division and then search the LLC name and get a contact for it through that way. Even if it's you know, a lawyer or legal office, something like that, you'll have a contact.
And then just want to share a couple of resources. So SCORE is a nonprofit organization that provides mentorship, training, resources for small business owners. They have tons of workshops. I know that both Durham County Library and Mimi at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library partner with SCORE. And they have 9 chapters in North Carolina, in Fayetteville and Wilmington, Morehead City, Hendersonville, and Candler, which is right near Asheville. but a good partner to turn to potentially say, you know, do you want to co-host something with a library? Would you like to use our space? Can I table at one of your events? Mimi, I know you've done that in the past.
SCORE, I'll say that SCORE has been a great partner for us. We are probably expanding our partnership with them in the next few months. They've been great to work with. Also, if you have a client who has something very specific, say they're I don't know, a wildlife photographer, they can request a specific mentor through SCORE nationally. They'll go through their directory and figure out who they have that's closest enough to help out, especially if they just have more generalists in the area. So definitely get in touch with your local SCORE chapter and just say hi at least, because they've been great and they're very, very willing to work with people.
And even if you are not in one of those cities where there's a SCORE chapter, it is a national organization and they do a lot of work either over the phone, virtual, Zoom meetings, whatever. So they will work with anybody anywhere. So don't let the fact that you're not in one of those cities preclude you from going on score.org and suggesting that your patron, contact them and get a mentor.
We have the NC Small Business and Technology Development Center. So there's a center in every community college in North Carolina. I know folks mentioned in the chat earlier their own small business centers, but those are really great partners because you can share the resources with them if they're not already using them. They could benefit greatly from Data Axle and other business resources. Women's Business Center. So this is a resource that Mimi shared, 3 different locations in North Carolina.
They also have specific veterans business centers. So if you have a population with a high number of veterans, make sure to direct them that way.
And then different business nonprofits that could be potential partners outside of university business centers or community college business centers. Organizations like Mountain BizWorks or Startup High Country in Boone or Innovate Raleigh. They're also doing programming and events, and in some cases reaching out to the library directly for training on Data Axle. Any questions? We've got a couple of minutes left. In the follow-up email, we'll also share our contact info in case you'd like to reach out to us with further questions.
Devin, are you going to send a notice of the recording to each of the attendees? So if they have staff that couldn't attend, they can go back and look at the recording?
Yes. So tomorrow morning, I'll send a follow-up email with the recording. It will be on our YouTube channel, but I'll also send you that direct link with a feedback survey, our slides, the handout. So in that feedback survey, please share any further training topics that you'd like to cover, more business research topics or panel discussions or AI, like anything that comes to mind. We do take that feedback into account and we use it to inform the training program. And then we do have shared promotional and instructional materials for these resources. Some of the social media graphics that we put together for Data Axle are on this guide. We also have a print promotional materials program where you can order, let me go up here and go to For Librarians. And in this shopping cart experience, you can order brochures, flyers for Data Axle, and they will get shipped to your library. They are free of charge, and Data Axle is doing the work of printing them on glossy paper, cardstock, and they'll be shipped directly to you. So if that is of interest, something to take a look at later, as well as for some other resources. All right. Well, if there are no questions, we will wrap things up.